Hello and welcome back to yet another campaign diary. Now, you might be able to tell I'm a little bit sick, but that won't stop me. Not today, no, because I need to make one of these videos again. Now, first a small side note. While listening to my previous videos, I was sort of annoyed at myself. I kept saying cult and sometimes specifying, oh no, not the cult they were fighting, so I'm just going to name them. There is the cult of Undia, which is the cult they've sort of been fighting against. Which we can just call evil for the purposes of this video and our party. Well, I guess they are evil, they want to take over the world. So, and then there is another cult, and they have come through temples belonging to this other cult. We're gonna call that the cult of the unnameable one, or the cult of the old one, or something like that. And they have no quarrel with this cult. But when we last left our heroes, they ran into a human lady with an amulet that resembled the stone they kept seeing in these temples of the cult of the old unnameable one. And they had a bit of a talk with her, and she actually recognized the weapon they were carrying around, the weapons that belonged to the old unnameable one. And they learned a whole bunch of lore, and now they finally began to understand, after they trusted her a little bit better, what all of these weapons do, what the point is. They can be merged back together into a sword. Well, they already figured that out. And this sword can be used to open specific portals that belong to the old unnameable one, to travel to different, well, dimensions, worlds, planes of existence, however you wish to call it. They learned that this woman, Aldrig, she comes from a family that used to be fervent followers of the old unnameable one, and she is also one because of a mistake she made. She read a part of a book, and the old unnameable one is based on information, so she took information from him, and that immediately signed her contract. She is now a follower of this old unnameable one, but she doesn't mind. She just hasn't been doing it a lot recently. But she ran into these players, these adventurers, and she decided to start giving her information to this entity again in exchange for powers. And yeah, she just sort of helped the players around as a sort of conduit for information. And now the players have at least some way of locating this temple where they could do something with the sword, maybe unlock a portal, who knows. And this Aldrig has said that yes, she has gotten visions and she can see where this is. But they had some unfinished business to settle first. They went back to the goblin village and gave the goblins these orc nuts, as they have come to know them. And the goblins seemed to be better off. You know, their village, there was trade going on between their village and the local elves. And this is all because something another player did in the same world. It's a sort of living world that two different parties are playing in. Anyway, they set off to Valude, a city where they know a certain spy master who has the final piece of the sword, and they also killed like the local thieves guild, which made them feel a bit uneasy as they were walking through Valude. But they got an audience with the spy master Malakir, who recognized them, and you know, they are on somewhat friendly terms, and the players have actually come to trust her now, which is good, if you ask me. And Aldrig also went with them. And I sort of roleplayed Aldrig talking about her religion and this old unnameable one and what these artifacts do to Malakir, and Malakir thinking about it long and hard and then deciding that, okay, you can have this piece back. It's probably going to be safest with you because you have good intentions. You've shown what you're capable of, and also I don't want to spend any soldiers that have to come with you and maybe die up in the north in these chaotic, dangerous mountains. So yeah, and that is basically what they decided. So they went up north to one of the dwarven cities, very close to where the dangerous mountain ranges actually sort of start. Of course, there's not just plains and then mountains, you develop into hills, but I digress. And there they forged the sword back together. They put down all of the pieces on the floor. They got out the small key that supposedly forges and unforges it. And the pieces slowly came back together, the sword levitated in the air, green light came from it, and now they have a very, very weird looking, but very special, magical longsword. And there was a bit of banter between the cleric, who had been using one of these artifacts as his primary weapon, and the fighter, who uses longswords. but the fighter got it in the end, so good for him. So now we can use this as a longsword, and after he attacks, he can cast Magic Missile as a bonus action. If he chooses not to cast Magic Missile, and, if he doesn't want to attack, he can just use Always as a bonus action to spend a hit dice. So, quite a special, strong sword, but they fought long and hard for it, and now it's theirs, and they deserved it. And yeah, then they set off into the mountains. A few other things happened, but they were very minor. Though what may be interesting to talk about, they had this candle which they got from a merchant, and it was supposedly a magic candle. It can only be lit if it is already within an illuminated environment. That might sound useless at first, because, well, if you already have a candle in an illuminated environment, then why would you want to light the candle? But if you think about it a little more, well, how do you light a candle? Well, with fire. So that illuminates the room. So, wait, does this candle actually do anything special? Nobody has ever bothered to check whether or not this candle has any magic abilities. And the cleric decided to test it, and no, he cast Detect Magic. The candle was just completely ordinary. They had been shortchanged, basically. They had essentially been fooled. But nobody else at the table knew this, because I gave him a note that said, hey, it's just a normal candle. And as do other players were experimenting with the candle to see if it actually did the thing they heard it did, he cast blindness on one of them. So from the perspective of one of those players, they tried to light the candle in a very particular way that is meant to circumvent this. You can only light it when it is in an illuminated area rule. This player suddenly was blinded for 1 minute, and then it was all fine. But yeah, a fun little moment I did want to include, even though it was like a very short thing at the table. That is all I have to say about what happened the last time I played at the table. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.